Hi, everyone. I am so excited today to go live with one of the coolest people I know and the deepest and the best souls ever. Hi, here she is, Tina Cartwright of Rebranding Motherhood. Give it a second.
Hi.
Oh, hey there.
Hey, coming straight off the beach.
I am so jealous.
It's
You, you
like
live
the one
right
time
on.
of year Maine is enviable.
It's
Totally.
so fast that you're like, quick, go.
Exactly. Like literally, that's exactly how I felt today. I was like, okay, do we even have time for this? And I'm like, we're gonna make it happen because who
Yeah,
knows when the next nice day
right.
is.
Totally. Totally. I know I have family in Maine, and when Maine turns it on, there is nothing better.
Can't agree with you more. It's like
It's
the most magical place in the world.
it is. It's so good. Oh my goodness. Um, Speaking of magical, I love speaking to you.
Thank you.
So good to see you
Same.
always. And we were saying like this isn't our first posted conversation. We've had a few. One of them was just very special to me. You came and we spoke on here at my house on the dock about our journeys with our mothers and navigating that, and you being a part of the Untethered program. And really, I just wanted to kind of continue that conversation today and talk about, you and I have known each other for a long time, and it's been just so inspiring and such an honor to know you on your journey and to see you evolving and in motherhood and life and humanness. And I just wanted to, have an open conversation about your journey with that. And really, right now we're enrolling for my new program, Flourish. And when I think of you, I'm like, you are a model of flourishing, right? And that hasn't always been the case, right? As with all of us, like our
Not
thriving,
even.
it doesn't feel like that for a long time. So, yeah, just tell people a little bit about you if they don't know you, and maybe a little bit about your journey and how you've kind of gone from maybe struggling in motherhood. I know you're very open about your postpartum journey to really being where you're at today, maybe the ages of your kids, and how you're seeing you're thriving and how you got here.
Absolutely. So I'm Tina Cartwright. So good to meet everybody, anybody who's coming through here. I am a mom of two girls. The youngest one is 2.5, basically over a fresh 24 months, and will be 3 in a few months' time. And then my oldest is like 5.5. Will be 6 in October. So they're like 2 years ish apart. So two toddlers as roommates, and which is crazy and interesting. And so I think you were kind of talking about like where I started and where I was. And I have to tell you too, there's like I don't know if I can go tangential, but
Oh yeah.
I am loving this new show called The Gerard Carmichael Show, and it's on HBO. And it's this gentleman who just won an Emmy. And anyways, it's really a biopic about his life, and it's very, very raw and unfiltered and like complete access. And anyways, he has a very strained relationship with his mother.
Oh.
And last night, you're going to trip out on this, Sarah, when we talk about woo woo.
Yeah.
Last night's episode was dedicated to his strained relationship and really showed all of the pain and the disconnection that happens. And we won't say it here, but the episode's name was my mother's name because his mother has the same exact name as my mother, same behaviors. I was like, I haven't even finished the episode. I was just like, and we're talking today, and I just threw it on because it was like the next episode up, and he came out as a gay man, and then that really broke and severed their relationship, and it was just this wild moment because for so many reasons. But I just had to share that with you because it never really leaves the strained mother relationship. wound that we're
Mhm.
dealing with. It's like always at the surface.
Oh my God, that what are the chances? It's the same name.
Right? Same
It's
name, same behaviors. It was like watching myself. It was very out of body because it
yeah,
was like the same dynamics,
yeah.
but this individual was at a different place in their relationship where they hadn't maybe drawn like boundaries that were healthy yet, and they were still hoping that the other individual would change who they are,
Mhm.
which you and
Mhm.
I know
Mhm.
is unlikely.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I digress,
Yeah.
but y'all, I love that show. It's so good. It's so up my alley because it just really shows all of humanity, of being a human, like what
Mhm.
it's like to go through all these different emotions. And so before I could even appreciate all of this, I didn't even know how to articulate my emotions, my feelings. I felt like I was really kind of trapped inside my own body. Like I knew there was something I couldn't access, and it had been frozen in me for so long. Insert, I just had a baby. Insert, I was probably 4 months postpartum. Insert, I just met Sarah at this like exact moment, and it was really this beautiful experience of, I mean, you use the word flourish, but you started dropping seeds. Like that was
Mhm.
like the first step, was like, okay, we're going to drop some seeds. And I was along with you on this journey you've been on as well, where you're evolving and you're like, oh, I'm starting the School of Mom. And
Yeah.
I was like, cool, let's drop seeds. You're like, the School of Mom was like creating above
Mhm.
ground planters. You're like, we're going to start planting these seeds and like creating an environment, an ecosystem. And it was so powerful for me, y'all, because I really, I think a lot of us struggle with this, is we're not in our society given vernacular, given tools, given words, or even illustrations or imagery to articulate the wide variety of feelings that we're going through, the
Mhm.
emotions that we're going through. And life has only gotten more stressful for all of us. I mean, there was a whole pandemic that we're all trying to pretend had never happened, right? And so as we go through all of those without having the ability to even articulate my emotions,
Yeah.
I could never even access self-care,
Yeah.
because there was, I mean, self-care is not going to fix the fact that I can't access mindfulness, because I can't even I don't even know what I'm feeling.
Mhm.
So there's no way I'm going to take a pause and like reflect on my feelings, and then there's no way I'm going to be like, oh, and I'm going to like fuel myself back in.
Yeah.
And the last thing that was so detrimental to my ability to kind of like connect was I didn't have any boundaries. That's
Yeah.
like a core part. There's so many core parts of like your school and what you put together for your curriculum, but boundaries was huge.
Yeah.
I didn't know what they were. I didn't have any. I actually would say I had like dangerous, toxic
Mhm.
like types of boundaries with my body and my relationships and people around me. And so I was really in this dire state. You described it as like I was in a garden. I was like this beautiful flower in this like toxic, like left alone, like destroyed little garden. And I'm like trying to bud out, and like a little flower petal like pops out of the dirt some days, and then it's like more sludge, more crap, more junk. It's just like chucked on, and I could never get
Yeah.
out in that environment.
Yeah.
And that was really the inflection point when you and I started connecting. And then what I would say is that really set me on a foundational space of
Mhm.
getting like the foundational tools. And then the next layers were body work, dealing with
Mhm.
my mother wound, dealing with really defining self care that's like more of a practice
Yeah.
versus a massage.
Yeah.
And so I know I'm kind of going on, but like that, I feel like that was like the throughput
Yeah.
of how I feel like I've gotten to this point.
Yeah. I mean, I just laugh because you're talking because I remember like back in the day, we were at Boston Naps' initial location when they were
Yes.
doing classes in person. Shout
Yes.
out to Emily and Jamie.
Shout out to
And
Emily and Jamie.
it was a mindful parenting series that I think you got dragged to by a
I
friend, like
did.
with a friend, Brooke.
My mom
Yeah,
friend.
Brooke.
She was
Shout out to
Brooke.
Brooke.
Oh, shout
Yeah.
out to Brooke. Love
Yeah.
Brooke.
And
Love
I
Brooke.
was teaching like mindful parenting. I had a really little kid at the time, I think. Yeah, little kid. Um and you're absolutely right. Like I was kind of in the beginning of my own thing. And I love how you said I was doing like the plant or above ground because I was really at that point teaching mindfulness primarily. And in my own work was really building that skill of being able to be present with what was
Yes.
without being like pulled down,
Yes.
into it, right?
Yes.
And so the evolution of the school of mom, and then which is your work, like you kind of have been one of those people that's been with me as I've like evolved my teaching, because I've been doing the same thing of like, oh, like actually, like now let's look at the actual garden on the earth, and like we need to look at this soil and this
Yes.
like the weeds that are pulling you down. Like you
Yes.
are this flower that's trying to thrive, and yet like you've got mom shit and you've got programming
Yes.
that is really getting in the way,
100%.
right?
100%.
And so that was that, like looking at that relationship with the mom, the mother wound, and looking at the somatic and the nervous system
Yep.
pieces that were everything, right? We're everything.
Everything.
Yeah. And so, I mean, you and I share, we talked a little bit about Untethered here on Instagram a while ago. You and I share, we are apples, which in the school of mom is women, mothers who either have a non-existent relationship with their mom or an estranged relationship with their mom, or
Yes.
strained, excuse me,
Strange.
strained or estranged.
It's strange.
And yeah, I mean, you'll love this story. So I was at my cousin's wedding on Mother's Day.
Oh, wow.
Interesting day for wedding. Mother's Day.
Totally is.
Yeah, and my mother showed up uninvited and unannounced
On Mother's
on Mother's Day.
Day. I'm like triggered in your honor.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, but it was so amazing, Tina, as you can imagine. Like you told me this once and I laughed. You were like, you're like hashtag healed. And I was like, actually, like I don't love to say that because I do believe like there's always going to be stuff. Like I'm never fully healed. But that was an example of why I do and teach this work, because I was really untethered in that moment when she showed up. And that would not have been me 5 or 10 years ago. And that's not a lot of the women that I work with at the beginning of their journey, right? But we're about to graduate another round of Untethered, and I'm starting to see some of that. It's the weeds are thick. They're like
Oh,
thorns,
thorns.
wrapped around us.
Deeply rooted.
Yeah,
Deeply. Like,
yeah,
so you're into gardening now.
yeah.
It reminds me of those like bamboo. Do you have
Yes,
those coming through your yard yet? They're like parasitic weeds.
yeah.
You
So
cannot
I
kill.
had a garden consultant come in who her name is Jess from You Can Do It Gardening, which like I posted about it the other day, and so many people have reached out to me to be like, oh my God, you adjust at your house? Like she's like a celebrity of mine. Like it's so funny how this woman, like she's awesome. But so we don't have bamboo, we have bittersweet. So
Okay.
she started with invasives.
There
And
it is.
I couldn't help but to think like, so bittersweet, it doesn't have thorns, but I'll like send you a picture when I leave here. It
Absolutely.
wraps itself around all the plants,
Wow.
and literally you look at it, you're like, oh my God, like that poor plant just got completely, it's like a Harry Potter. Why was that? Like it's like the Harry Potter one where you're like trapped, right? That's
Yes.
the invasive. So we have the same thing, and that's really what it feels like. You're like,
100%.
you cannot see the out,
Mm-mm.
or you can't breathe
Mm-mm.
of the shame and the anger and the doubt and all that stuff that some of that just comes with like being a woman and being a mom, being in our society today, but is extra thick when we have
Yes.
mom shit.
Oh, 100%. Like, I mean, I think the way I was talking to I was at the Motherhood Center. I love the gals at the Motherhood Center. Like, they're just incredible.
I need to.
And I was talking to their like in-house, they have this amazing nursery space there for like the mom. So like when you come for the day program, you can like leave your kiddos there, and it was like better care than any like bougie like daycare program in Boston. It was incredible. And this woman that's been there since the beginning for like, I mean, years, she was just talking about how like so many individuals, when they become mothers, it's the first time you're like, I mean, well, first of all, we're not given any type of backdrop of information. We're really not like uploaded with the right data or resources to know what the hell we're supposed to do when we enter motherhood. Even though society would lead us to believe that because we're women, we just know what the hell we're doing, but we don't. And she's like, once you become a mother, you're like trying to it's like this, it's like a visceral reaction. You're reaching into any examples that you have, any examples that you may have in your life, which is your mom. Like it doesn't matter like if they're a good mom or a bad mom, you're just like instantly like catapulted into, okay, well my mom did this, and then it's like this, like you said, this comprehensive entangling that's like resurfaced. Like, so even if you dealt or found a way to white knuckle
Yep.
through a very severed motherhood wound,
Yep.
then you get through life, you're like, okay, I think I'm like kind of okay, but not really. And then you become a mother and you're just like, I was almost like you said, I was almost like crippled. It was
Yes.
like I can't eat, like I'm so triggered. I'm having all of these things are being brought up in my body. You talked about somatic healing that are being brought up in my body by just like looking at a baby smile at me, my baby. Like
Mhm.
just all these basic moments where I'm faced with kind of asking myself these questions of like, how could somebody do this to their kid? How could somebody treat their
Yeah.
child this way?
Yeah.
How could an individual be so harmful or hurtful or negligent or whatever? The breakdown is with your mother, and it's this like reckoning that you
Mhm.
can't ignore when you become a mother, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think I remember it was probably in your cohort when we had that very powerful conversation about that, those moments where you're looking at your kid and you're like, I love this kid so much. And in this split second, all of a sudden you're like, how did my mom not look at me this way? Or
Yes.
did she? And like you're
Yes.
instantly in your own stuff, right? Which of course
Yes.
then leads to disconnection with your kid. And then you have shame about that. And like, and
100%.
so it goes. Like there are the thorns, right? So I wonder if you can share again, like, so if that's like part of our shared journey and really your journey with like the flower that's like trying to find the sun, right? So, you were part of the School of Mom and the mom program. You did Untethered. So you've been in this work of mindfulness, self-compassion, somatic work, nervous system healing, right? Community, like being
Yes.
with women. Like we cannot do this in isolation.
Mm-mm.
And I guess I would love you. Can you speak to that a little bit? Like how has that been a part of your thorn removing journey and like flowering journey?
Yeah, I think the biggest piece is I would imagine, at least from what I've heard people talk about who are in like alcohol recovery programs, specifically Al-Anon. Like I feel like I've heard people say they have the same sensation. But prior to coming into the Untethered program, I always felt, well, society always led me to believe that it's my fault, which is like insane. I'm going to say this out loud, but this is what it, that it's my fault as a child that there's a breakdown in the relationship between me and my
Yeah.
mother. And that if, despite all else, despite all of the things that we said, like the moments in where a mother is supposed to, because they're not equal power, right? It's never equal power. When the mother is supposed to be additional and supportive, additionally being aware of their behavior so it's not impacting a child. All those moments were my fault, is what society leads you to believe, and that no matter what, I have to fix it because
Yeah.
of the treacherous tattoo statement. She's your mom, but
Mhm.
she's your mom, and I always wanted to be like, exactly, she is my mom, and like, why is this happening to me? Why am I being treated this way? And so there was this instant level of shame, Sarah. I could never heal because from it because I was constantly feeling like I'm doing something wrong.
Mhm.
And like if I don't fix it, which I've now realized in some cases you can't fix it and you have to draw like a harder boundary for your own
Mhm.
sanity. Um that I can't change somebody else's behavior. I can't make somebody act a different way just because I want them to act a certain way. So I think that was the hardest part, trying to go it alone,
Mhm.
trying to heal this wound in isolation, is just like like the unintentional judgment that's thrown your way from people, as you're talking about your pain, as you're talking about your experience, as you're talking about what you're going
Yeah.
through with your parent.
Mhm.
And so having a community of, we say lovingly, our apples, so other individuals who are experiencing this, allows me to just come in and like start working through and sifting through my own situation versus trying to like deal with my insecurities of people looking at me or judging me or having a certain reaction to me saying like, I'm not in a relationship with my
Mhm.
mother. Like I'm, for whatever reason. And
Yeah.
so I think that is one of the most powerful things is having that connective point.
Yeah. The community piece is everything, and so in Flourish, we are adding a monthly lineage call. And if you don't know Dr. Lidiana Garcia, if people are listening to this, I did a live with her. She's just written a book on the mother wound. It's going to be coming out in Spanish first, so we have to wait.
Right.
For those of us that don't speak Spanish, she's amazing. But to really help, like, even if you aren't like, some people might be like, do I qualify to be an apple? Like, is it bad enough?
Yeah.
And I would say, like, even the women I know that have been through the school mom, who, like, there's, when I first started the school mom, I thought I would probably attract most of the women who didn't have a healthy relationship with their mom. Because I think in my head, I was like, oh, the ones who have the healthy moms are fine.
Yes. Yes.
They're
Yes.
fine.
They're
Like,
fine.
and I need this, but they don't. But actually, I found the opposite, that, there's always a spectrum. And even like there was a large cohort, there is a large cohort of moms who had the mom who was the martyr. And they were like, I don't want to hand on that baton either. Like, I don't want
Mm-mm.
the mom who never puts herself first. Like,
Exactly.
I saw her completely, deteriorate because she always took care of us first. And I don't want to do that. And I
Yes.
don't want to show my kids that. So it was so interesting as this 4 years ago, and I started and I was really exploring, like, what is your relationship with your mom? It's one of my questions I ask off the bat. I was like, oh, wait a second. Everybody is like looking to be more conscious in the baton that they're passing on and what they're modeling for their kids, right? And so that's why the lineage call is really cool, because we all get to look at that in a really open and constructive way, where we can hold the women who have decided to potentially take a break, temporary or permanent.
Yep.
And also the women who are like, absolutely, like that isn't in the cards for me, because maybe my relationship is healthy enough that, like, I don't
Exactly.
need to do that.
Yep.
Right. But we can all be in this together and support each other and be mindful of our judgments, because we're all a reflection of, our own, like, other people are going to reflect those back to us.
Yes.
So it's such a cool community to be in. And I was talking on a group call this morning for some women at the school mom, and this woman was like, like, because she's been in my more intimate space. It's going to be called radical flourishing. It's the kind of the flourish that's like includes in-person retreats. It's like very small group. And she was like, I was wondering if I was going to do it again. And then I realized, like, I can't find this community anywhere. Like, I don't have a community where I can hop onto a call and, like, really, like, lift up the hood of
Exactly.
my consciousness and,
Mm-hmm.
like, be so raw, like, on a Tuesday at 10 a.m. and then,
Yes.
like, move on, and, like, how
Exactly.
healing that is, right?
Yes.
So I think that, as you said, it's like being in a community of women where we're all like, you know what, life is short. We want to be good parents and we want to thrive.
Yeah.
So, like, let's just get into it and hold each other lovingly and hold each other accountable as well, so that we can actually follow through on like how we want to be in the world.
100. 100. And I've noticed too, to your point, it's more of the exception than the rule to have a mother that's like a healthy,
Mhm.
balanced relationship.
Yes.
And there's so many reasons for that. It's like, but social media, even with Mother's Day, you're starting to see more content around like the different illustrations or different imagery that represents like Mother's Day.
Mhm.
And there's all these different types of Mother's Day representations that are out there in the world, not just the one that's like on our TV screens that's just like flashing up, that's, this is a universal experience for Mother's Day and this is what motherhood looks like for every single family, which is not the case. And I've learned that so many people actually struggle. To your point, it's so rare. And I would say that a lot of people have some type of disconnect with how they're connecting with their mother. Like there's
Mhm.
some thing that
Mhm.
breaks it down for them to show up as their full authentic self. Like I
Yeah.
don't even know I can't even think of someone who's like, I really love I love my mom. I have a healthy,
Yeah.
positive, like I'm trying to like think of an example. I can only think of people who have like pretty serious severs, and it's more a matter of like how much they want to admit that
Mhm.
it could, like you say, how good could it get?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people just live in the, oh well, it's my mom, so it is what it is phase.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
I don't know how that hits you, but
Yeah, no, it's true. You know, especially just having a program that supports women who don't have a relationship. I do hear a lot of that narrative for sure. I can think of a few, and I'm really inspired by them. But
Yes.
ultimately, that's why we're here too. Is like, you know, I always say, like, I don't really care necessarily what tips you over the edge of like saying yes to a program like Flourish. Like, is it if it's your kids? If you're like, okay, I want to do differently for my kids. I want to be the parent that I want to, you know, be the healthy model. Awesome. If it's like I want to take care of myself, like I'm the primary reason. Awesome. But the bonus is you win both ways,
Yes.
right? Like whatever the motivation is that brings you in there. And I actually think this is the gift of kids is that
Yeah.
how many women out there are like, I know I need to take care of myself, moms. I know I need to take care of myself, but you know what? Like for example, right? Like right now, end of school, shit, like there's so much happening, right?
No.
And moms are like, I had a mom say this the other day. She's like, you know what the school mom has taught me is that when shit hits the fan and things blow up and the schedule gets crazy, she's like, usually the first thing to go was like anything for myself. And now my programming that we're rewiring actively here is that's the first thing to add or hold. It's like the
Yes.
more busy my life gets, the more I need to get on a yoga mat and do a yoga nidra or
Yes.
show up to a call. Like
Yes.
it's this rewiring. And I was like, imagine what it would be like if all moms in the world were like, oh my God, things are getting so busy and crazy. Number one priority is me doing something for myself this week
Correct.
or today, right? Like
Correct.
that is the cool programming that we're really rewiring for women is like, so you get the benefits and you're modeling differently for your kids. So everybody wins,
And that's
right? But I think for
where,
the
yes, totally. And that's the win is like when your kids see something different, now we're breaking the generational
yes,
like sever and we're
yes.
changing the dynamic for good.
Yeah, and you know what I love to say is like I think, you know, breaking cycles is a thing. We're all talking about it. It's again, it's big on the gram here. And for me though, when I hear breaking cycles, there is an element of like heaviness. Like I
Yeah.
actually feel like I got this huge axe and I have to like, ugh, like, you know, like, oh my God, it's like one more thing I have to like carry for myself.
Yes.
And so the way I like to think about it is really more on the hopeful creation side. It's like, yes, we do have to break, but like a big part of the school mom is creating and welcoming in these ways of being, these thriving ways of being. And what I say to moms is like, it is in us. Like it may not be with your mom, but I've done some ancestral work, which I've shared a little bit with you. It's like a little out there, but like when I first did this ancestral work, the woman, I was like, I don't want to connect with anybody. And my ancestor, I was like, there's a lot of mental illness, addiction, and dysfunction. I was like, I don't think
Hmm.
there's going to be any wisdom for me here.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and she said to me, and this is really important for people to hear, she was like, somewhere along the line, there is a wise, well, and insightful member in your family, and they are cheering you on, and that is what you're connecting to. And
Mm.
and we actually did tap into an ancestor who had some amazing messaging, and she said this, and this is one of the things I kind of, you know, I know we want to wrap up here because you need to get back to the beach. Um, but it's this like connecting to this sense of pride that it takes one mom in a lineage
Yes.
to change it either way, right? It takes one mom in a lineage who experiences trauma. It's not her fault, but she experiences trauma. She experiences lack of support, isolation, something, illness, whatever it is. And that has the power to shift and change lineages to come. And on the flip side, it takes one woman and one mom to say, I'm going to take care of
Yeah.
myself and I'm going to get the support to do it. And that also has the power to shift and change. And when I connect, that feels really hopeful to me. It doesn't actually feel as heavy because I'm like, oh, and it's like I'm connecting the dot from some ancestor way back when, but like it's not all on me. It's in us, it's in the collective, it's in Mother Earth. Like thriving is all around us, right? And we just need to tap into it and get that support.
I love that. And that's so true because having this like Eeyore, if you will, like kind of mentality, I think there's always like you and I talk a lot about this of like
Yeah.
there's a fine line of explaining the reality so people feel seen
Mm-hmm.
of like what they're experiencing, but not staying so deep in that like visualization
Yeah.
that we just live in like the well, I guess this is what it is. I guess there's nothing I can do. You know what I mean? Because you're right. We all have the power to make a change at any moment. Let me be a testament to that. Okay. Like, even if you feel like I don't even no, I don't even have feelings. Like, do I have feelings? The answer is you do. But in
Yeah.
your brain, you're like, I don't think I have them. How can I access them? Even no matter where you are on it, it's never too late to redefine and set a new way of living and putting you and yourself on a different, you and your family on a different path of how you're going to show up in this world, how you're going to connect with people in this world, how you're going to connect with yourself. Like you said, how you're going to tap into thriving in
Yeah.
a way that feels like attainable and accessible. Because I think that's another thing you give a lot of permission to in your program and your curriculum is like defining it for yourself, y'all.
Mm-hmm.
Not defining
Mm-hmm.
it by the
Yes.
means of the even like the next mom in my community. That's like my good friend. Like she is still an individual and lives a different life with different baggage and different all these different pieces that aren't my story. And so getting comfortable in defining like how I can get rest, how I can restore, how I can thrive, and it being just for me, which is a great permission slip.
Totally. And like, if you're okay with that, I want to share my garden analogy with this is like, I love the Eeyore metaphor because so say the way I think about the school mom is it's like a community garden plot, right? And like, if you want to create a garden that's pretty gray and dying, like you should find the community garden plot that has a bunch of Eeyores in it. Like that are
Yes.
just like so deep in the narrative of like this is so hard and everyone's against us and society's the worst and it's like yeah it is and guess what like we are the product of the people we spend the most time with so if you're a mom listening and you're like I'm kind of tired of this narrative like
Yes.
there's a fine line between meeting someone where they're at. We know this with our kids. Like we want to be there in their feelings and we want to support them. And then at some point it's like, okay, we got to help you move through this. Like we got to help you actually like have a little bit of fierce self-compassion and a boundary here to say, and how can we help? How can we move? Right. And there it's for everyone it's different. But the way I think of it is like the school mom's like the community plot, and you get your own little plot of like that's the garden that is you, and you get to decide, as you said, like I might want to grow all flowers and you want to grow all vegetables or a
Yes.
hodgepodge. Like, but I
Yes.
want to be in the community garden where people are around being like, hey, do you want me to water your plants while you're away? And like, oh, hey, did you know that if you move this a little bit farther, then like blah, blah, blah. And like, and by the way, I haven't seen you in the garden for a while, and I know it was really important for you to grow these flowers. So like, can I help you in getting back into the garden? Right? Like that is the metaphor. And so I love that because you have to be really clear, like anyone listening, of like, okay, in my life right now, how intentional am I being about surrounding myself with people that are helping me stay in alignment with kind of where I want to go? How good can it get? Like, who do I want to be? How do I want to show up for my kids? Right. And I will tell you right now, this has been a for sure journey with me, for sure. And like, it's why I just love staying connected with you because like it's like that ebb and flow of like, yeah, we can go into the hard stuff, but we're always moving forward and we're always like calling each other. Like you've done such a, like you've given me right back what I've helped you with of like with my business and owning my value and being like, Sarah, like, you're smart. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Like, who's gonna listen to this? And you're like, no, you're and so giving me back that reflection of like when I can't do it for myself.
Yes.
And that is because you're in my garden, right? If I was just sitting there floundering, I'd be like, I'd give up. I'd be like, no, there's no
100%.
point in growing this, right?
It's
So
so
yeah.
critical, Sarah, because I was just telling a story yesterday or whatever we were at. Girl, I lose time as a mom.
Yeah.
Maybe it was 2 days ago. Maybe it was
Yeah.
yesterday. But recently, you and I were having a chat with your
Mm.
community, and I was talking about my origin story for rebranding motherhood. And one of my fellow garden friends, my fellow community garden members,
Yep.
said to me and looked me in the eyes and believed in me that I could build something and that I could make something called rebranding motherhood and that people would care about it.
Mm-hmm.
And when I felt like you said, when I've stopped going to the garden or felt like I can't plant anything or planting's not for me, having those people that you can tap into to have a healthy support back. And that doesn't even always mean, because sorry, I know we're getting into relationships here, but I think it's important, especially for moms, to just have permission and to know, like, I really spent a lot of time like cultivating my community garden members, and I feel like it's a constant
Yes.
evolution. I thought I kind of knew what it needed to be when I got married, right? We all know when you like decide to lock in and make a commitment with a partner and you're deciding who's coming on the invite list, you start culling your community garden members and like, who do you want to keep and not.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a kid, if you decide to have a kid, and then you have to cull it all over again because you're not even the same person anymore. Like, you're not the
Wow.
same person. Your relationships aren't the same. And I think what's been really hard is really getting healthy definitions
Mm-hmm.
of a positive community garden member. Okay,
Yes.
like, what is that?
Mm-hmm.
It's not, I'm making it up, but it's not like someone who's always down to go get margaritas on a Saturday, right? Like, that's not like defining it. It's somebody I may not even talk to every day, but they're gonna literally send me a text and be like, I haven't, like you said, I've been watching you from the lurch, and I haven't seen you like working out and doing yoga on your back patio, because I drive by your house every day and I'm making sure you're like doing yoga because you love it, Tina. Like, where have you been? It's that type of support. It's that support where you're like, I didn't even know that person like alive and well. Like, I haven't even maybe seen them or talked to them for a little bit, but they are watching you. They
Yeah.
are invested in your growth. They're invested in you shining your brightest. What
Mm-hmm.
things light you up from the inside out? What draws you closer to your purpose? They're invested in that, the stuff that matters. And I think if I could have gotten to, not if, that's one of the biggest things that's been so harmful to me in my rearing, is I didn't have those definitions for so long. So I was really like kind of working against myself.
Yeah.
Anything I'd be doing, I'm around all these people that are just like eliminating all my good work. They're telling me, oh, don't go do that. Oh, why does that matter? Like, just skip that. Like, just come do this thing with me. And I'm still feeling disconnected. And I think why that's so important for people is because when we talk about the body, it's so important to gather these principles from a cerebral standpoint, from your mind. But if
Mm-hmm.
you don't understand when you're having these seismic severs in your body and when those are happening, if you can't address those, you'll never get on the other side of things, because you're going to be constantly just like going backwards. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Mm-hmm. It does. It does. And yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know, we just like to drill that point home. Like, you need to be supported. And sometimes you outgrow your plot, is what you're saying. You're like, I know what?
100%.
I've been in this community garden for a little while. And I think I've outgrown it.
Yeah.
Literally, like, I've outgrown it. Like, and it served a purpose,
Yes.
right? It served a purpose. And, I mean, the relationship, it's tricky. One of the things we've been talking about, and we won't go down this tangent, but I think a lot of women that are in my program right now, what's really present is their partnerships, their
Yes.
marriages, their relationships. And I think it's really interesting to be seeing this around, like, that is a, like, women supporting women while we're navigating that, like, because we committed to that plot a long time ago. Right?
Exactly. There's
And
no
like,
new community garden we were likely getting, or
yeah, and I don't
it'll be
want to
hard.
get out of the plot that is my partnership and my marriage, but throwing these kids in here and all this extra stress, like, things have changed. And
Yes.
I have been growing myself as a gardener over here, and now I've changed too. So like my skills are different. And so I think that's another big piece, like just in Flourish this year, as we're bringing in a sex and couples therapist, because that's another dynamic that is so important with how we're doing, and so many women again feeling isolated in their own homes, in their role of a mother, but also in their role as a partner, and so it
100%.
just, I like can't speak enough. And I'm coming off of an in-person retreat on Sunday, like, so I am like, it is like in my body, this knowing of like the vitalness to our thriving of being in
Oh,
community with women, for all the
critical.
reasons. And yeah, so I'm just so grateful for you. And this conversation like flew
I
by. I know
know.
we could talk forever,
As always. As
as
always.
always. So I don't know, is there anything else that you want to share? If you say there's a woman listening, or a woman who's been checking out Flourish, and she's like, I don't know, like it's a big investment. Like it, you know, these are the same women, right? This is me, that won't bat an eye at spending like $500 for an art class that meets like twice for
Yes.
their kids. Like, you know, we'll complain about it, but we'll still do it, right? Because
Yes.
it's our kids, right? Like a mom that's pondering, but this investment for myself, oh no. Like whether it's time, whether it's money, whether it's just believing she's worth it, right? So she's contemplating this, what support she needs, and she's just feeling like she can't make that step. Like, what would you say to her?
Yeah, I think I would say to her that I'm literally looking at my collage, like my inspirational collage that I like have in my little space. And life is really about the space between, like, as a
Mhm.
human, right? It's about those little tiny moments, not the big ones that everybody remembers, but it's about all those little tiny moments that like
Mhm.
add up and give you joy or give you pain, but then you learn something from it. And not being able to access that is like you missing all of the goodness of what life is really about, all of the beauty. And really, it is a little bit of an individual journey,
Mhm.
and if you don't have your own gear and your own resources and your own education and all of that stuff together, it doesn't seem fair for you to go through life being the second one in line for joy,
Mhm.
being the second one in life to just feel connected and to experience all the things you want to create and thrive and be lit up to do. And so I empower you and challenge you to say, how good could it be? How
Mhm.
good could it get?
Mhm.
And if it could get that great, would it then be worth
Mhm.
whatever that investment is?
Yeah.
I guess you're probably going to say, well, yeah, Tina,
Yeah.
it might be.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then make the investment in yourself. Because it's totally, that's when you yield all the dividends, right? Then it's
Mhm.
something that your children are internalizing. I've seen changes in my own partner
Mhm.
and like seeing them internalize like the
Mhm.
way I'm thinking and taking care of myself and all of these different pieces. And so it truly is a gift that keeps on
Yeah.
giving. But let's say, who cares about the gift that keeps on giving?
Yeah.
Give the gift to yourself,
Yeah.
right? It's
Mhm.
so important to give the gift to yourself because you deserve it.
Yeah.
Period.
And
We all
it really
deserve it.
does, like, you know, the line, like it takes two to tango, is actually like not necessarily true. Like one, it takes one person to change how they are feeling in their body, right? The energy that is emoting from them, the relationship they have with with what's happening around them, to change the entire ecosystem, right? And women have that. It's kind of crazy. Like we have so much power in that. We can change the whole dynamic of our family. And some of that can feel heavy, but I actually get it. It feels like, wow, like I
Powerful.
get to do this,
Yeah.
you know? And there's a line I heard recently, which I love, is that the yes unlocks the how. And I think just saying yes to something that feels really edgy, and by the way, I just did this myself. I was like, I invested in a personal coach that, like, I was like, oh my God, this feels super edgy. I went for, I have to always go first. I'm like, I know what it feels like. But just doing that, I already am stepping into that version of myself that believes that I'm worth it. Like just the
100%.
yes is like, even you don't even have to do anything in the program yet. Like just the yes is sending a sign for a new part of your identity, right?
100%. It almost like grows new. I feel like we can do this in the fact check.
Yeah.
Okay, like you guys can fact check me later. But I believe when you say yes to something, I was just listening to this podcast where this guy was talking about the power of
Yeah.
manifestation, and that when you do say yes, it changes something in your brain
Yeah.
and begins looking for signs to basically cultivate the yes
Yeah.
scenario into
Yeah.
reality. So literally just say it. Like that is the power of manifestation. It's like, okay, well, I'm telling people I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to go build rebranding motherhood. And the
Yeah.
minute I say yes to it, then my brain is finding all these different ways of like, oh, well, Tina, what if you could do this? Oh, Tina, you could get involved in this. Tina, you could do this for that. And it just like you get all these moments that present it to yourself because the universe is magical, y'all. I mean, I'm not gonna get too woo woo for y'all right now, but it is a magic. I mean, literally how we started off the call, Sarah, that I'm talking to you about strained relationships, and then that episode popped up. Like the universe is always watching, And if you just tell it
Yeah.
what you need and you just tell it what
Mhm.
you want, it'll start percolating around it. And if you need tips and support on how to get there, please check out my girl Sarah Harmon. I love your work. I love your program. I love what you're doing. You know, I tell everybody in my role about what you're doing. They're always just like wanting to learn so much more immediately. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I adore you. I am such a
Same.
big fan. So honored to know you. And yeah, please check out Flourish if you're listening. We start June 3rd. It's going to be an awesome, wild, fun ride. Yeah, can't wait.
Sign up. Don't look back, y'all. Don't look
Don't look
back.
back.
The
Don't look
best thing
back.
you can do for yourself is anything. Make it that
Just,
easy.
just do
Okay.
something
You
something
anything.
different than you're doing.
One
Right?
thing.
Right? We can't solve a problem from the same state, right? That is creating the problem.
Correct.
So we have to get into a new state, and like that usually involves like doing something a little edgy. Getting into a
Right.
new community, being around a new person. So I hope you can join me. Anyhow,
Thank you, Sarah. Thank
thank
you, everybody who
you. Thank you
joined.
so
Thank you
much.
so much. This was
Have fun at
awesome.
the beach.
I
We'll see you
will.
soon.
I will. I'll see y'all later. Bye, everybody.
Bye.